Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our program, 5 Simple Steps for a Less Stressful Holiday Season with Jennifer L. FitzPatrick, MSW LCSWC. My name is Stephanie, and I am from Generations Health Education. We are so grateful for Ingleside of Rock Creek and King Farm sponsoring today's program. And shortly, we'll be hearing from Donna Fuller to give you some additional information about their communities. Real quickly, I just want to go over a few housekeeping things. Everybody is muted, and that is just to eliminate any background noises. However, the program is designed to be interactive. So if you have anything that you'd like to chat about or state or have a question to what Jennifer is speaking about, please feel free to do so by using the chat feature. In order to access that, you're going to scroll over the bottom of your screen till you see the chat bubble. When you click on that, you can just go ahead and use that to type in your question or comment. Everything is kept confidential. So the only ones that are seeing any questions or comments are Jennifer, Donna, and myself. Okay, I want to go ahead and introduce Donna Fuller of Ingleside, Rock Creek and Farm, and King Farm, excuse me, to give you a little bit of information about their communities.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're so happy that you could join us today. For those of you who don't know a lot about Ingleside, I just wanted to give you a broad overview. I also wanted to thank Generation so much for doing this program with us. We enjoy their programs as much as you do. Ingleside is a not-for-profit continuing care retirement community, and we actually have 3 communities, but the communities I'm focusing on today is Ingleside at King Farm and Ingleside at Rock Creek. One of the things that I wanted to mention to you is that kind of the big news and what has happened over the last year is that King Farm and Rock Creek has actually added brand new memory support residences for families who are navigating a dementia journey with a loved one. And they also built brand new independent living residences at both Ingleside at King Farm and Rock Creek. But both communities have been around for many, many years. So you can see from the slide here, it just gives you kind of a broad overview of how our campus is made up. So if you have any questions at all about Ingleside, do not hesitate to reach out to me. And I'll be back at the end of the presentation to talk a little bit more about one other program that we're offering right now in case you need some support. And I want to say that, you know, the learning tips for a less stressful holiday season is probably so relevant to so many of us. I can say as a mother of 3 kids juggling work and, you know, the pandemic and everything else, I think I'm really looking forward to this too. So anyway, enjoy it, and I will see you at the end of the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Donna. And again, we really appreciate Ingleside sponsoring today's program. Okay, let me give you a little bit of information about the program and about your presenter. Are you stressed out as a caregiver? Do you want ways to have a less stressful holiday season? If you answered yes to either of these questions, you're in the right place. Our presenter today is the author of Cruising Through Caregiving, Reducing the Stress of Caring for Your Loved One, and a longtime gerontology instructor at Johns Hopkins University's Certificate on Aging program. She has also been featured in national media such as CBS, ABC, Forbes, Reader's Digest, and SiriusXM. When she's not speaking and writing about healthcare, she can be found trying to resist the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A. Please help me welcome Jennifer L. FitzPatrick, MSW, LCSWC.
Well, welcome everybody. A year ago, I was giving this talk in lots of different areas of the country and virtually, and I could have never imagined the kind of stress that everybody's experiencing this year with the holidays, even if you're not caregiving, as Donna said. Whether you're caregiving, which I know a lot of you are, whether you're an older adult trying to navigate what makes sense for you this holiday season, whether you're homeschooling kids and everyone's at home all the time and you're trying to figure out how to navigate that. it seems like there's never been more stress around the holiday season. We're being told by public officials how many people we can have Thanksgiving with and other holidays with. So these are 5 simple steps for us to look at this year in an effort to try to have a less stressful holiday. I don't know about you, but I always start out the holiday season with such high expectations. And I think a lot of us start out with that from childhood, that we look forward to the holidays. It's this really special time of year. There's a lot of gifts. For a lot of us, there's a lot of parties. There's a lot of being off from school. There's a lot of seeing people that we don't normally see for a lot of us. And I think a lot of us set our expectations super high. And so I want you to be just thinking, if you want to write into the chat section, you're very welcome to do so. And again, remember that it is anonymous. So if you'd like to share your thoughts or your experiences, but in the past, under normal circumstances, I know I get really excited when the holiday season rolls around, but it is every year, I think, super important for all of us to remember to temper our expectations for the holidays. This year in particular, I know that there's so much buildup every holiday season. And I know, especially if you're taking care of an older loved one or you yourself are aging, but even for any of us, I think a lot of us always think about, well, this could be the last holiday with a certain person or a certain family member or a certain part of the family. And we also have a lot of high expectations. Okay, well, a lot of people have been saying 2020 has been such a horrible year and such a difficult year and such a challenging year that I can't wait for the New Year's. I'm not even really that concerned about Thanksgiving and the December holidays, but I'm much more just, let's get out of this year. So I want you to just think for a moment, just at your computer, at your phone, wherever you are right now. And I want you to be thinking about what makes sense for you to expect for this holiday season. What makes sense? What is going to make you happy? What kind of feeling do you want to have when you come out of the holiday season on January 2nd? What kind of feeling do you want to have? Do you want to be at peace? Do you want to feel more connected with loved ones? Do you want to feel like you were content with the way you spent your holidays? So I want you to sort of try to think of a word that you want to associate with January 2nd and going forward. And after we get through the holiday season, we've got Thanksgiving next week for those of you who are joining us live. But beyond that, after that, what are your expectations for the holidays? So try to have that word in mind as we go through the 5 steps that we're going to talk about. So whatever that word might be for you, fun, peace, contentedness, a do-over, whatever you want it to be, connection. So now we're going to talk about some of the steps. And there's so many ways that we could explore the holiday season this year, but let's go through the 5 steps that I selected. And I'm going to run through them with you first, and then we're going to go through them individually. So I got somebody writing in grateful. They want to have the feeling of grateful or gratitude, appreciation when they get through the holiday season on January 2nd. That's a really good one to start with. So let's briefly go through the 5 steps. So number 1, I thought I'd get this one out of the way quickly. Consider the COVID risk. And I think that's on everybody's mind, but we're going to talk about that. So I thought I'd get that one out of the way fast because it's on everybody's mind. Everybody's thinking about it. So step 1, consider the COVID risk. And we're going to go into more detail on these in a few moments. Step 2, every single year, this is so important, but we want to minimize the fall risk. If you yourself are an older adult, and specifically if you're caregiving for somebody who's an older adult, all of us are at risk for fall risks, but we're going to talk about what we can do and why it's so important this year. Step 3, scam-proof your holiday season. There's a lot of scams. They do not take breaks during the holiday. Financial exploitation is at an all-time high. And we're going to talk about some ways that we can scam-proof our holiday season and make sure we don't fall victim to a scam. The 4th one is be mindful of loved ones who have dementia. and we're going to talk about special considerations for making sure that you have a happy holiday with your loved one who has dementia, and that nothing that we do exacerbates any of their symptoms and or their behaviors. And then number 5, consider your silver linings. So we're going to spend some time thinking about silver linings and what we can be grateful for during this very difficult time that so many of us have been struggling with. So we're going to go back and we're going to talk a little bit about the COVID risk. And I think right now it can be very stressful and very confusing. Now, I want to invite everybody to think about, if you would like to write in, I would love for you to do so. But we've been dealing with COVID in our lives and in the news nonstop for 8 months. Remember back in March, I bet everybody remembers being told that we need 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We're going to shut down. We don't want to overrun the hospitals. 2 weeks to shut down the curve. And we knew what that really meant is we're going to try to protect the hospitals from being overrun if someone got a really bad case. But even back in March, you may recall that we did have data that 80% of people were going to have mild symptoms or even perhaps no symptoms. That was what we knew about COVID at that point. But I think all of us thought, well, that's reasonable. That makes sense. But now 8 months later, we all have a lot of different feelings about it. And some of us are still very scared. Maybe we're in a very high risk category, or our spouse is, or our parent is. Maybe we're spending a lot of time in front of the social media or the internet or our televisions, and we're hearing all this doomsday and gloom. So we're fearful, we're scared. Maybe we've never stopped being scared during this entire 8 months. Still, some of us might be frustrated. I don't want to hear any more advice from the government and health officials. I feel like I just want to live my life. I have frustration. Others might be super sad that they feel that they're missing out on people that they want to spend time with, or they feel like they're missing activities that they once enjoyed. Maybe having gatherings with large groups of people, maybe your kids going to school, they're sad because they're not going to school. Other people are angry. They're angry at the way that maybe they believe that other people aren't taking it seriously enough. Or maybe they're angry because they think that things should not be shut down a second time. So what I would invite everybody to do right now is I want to invite you all to think of what word or words, I want you to pick 1 or 2. What are the 1 or 2 words that you associate right now when you think about COVID and the COVID risk in the last 8 months? So I want everybody to think about that, and I'm not going to share anybody's answers, but if you want to write in, I would love to hear if you have a word or 2 that describes how you're feeling mostly about this situation. And it could be anything. It could be any word that I got. Anybody else would like to write in a word. But I do think what's important is exhausted. I have somebody writing in exhausted. So if anybody has another word that they would like to share, I got confined, deprived, annoyed. Thank you, everybody. Yeah. The reason that I wanted to talk about our feelings for a few moments before we dug into how to deal with COVID at the holidays is because I want everybody to remember that whatever feeling is at the top of mind for you is maybe not necessarily what's at the top of mind for your loved ones. So we have somebody wrote in exhausted. And then we have somebody else wrote in deprived. If you're trying to have a conversation about, well, what do we do about Hanukkah? What do we do about Christmas? What do we do about Thanksgiving? What do we do about the New Year's Eve celebrations we usually have? One person might be saying, I'm deprived. I feel deprived. I feel deprived that I can't see people, like we got to do this. And maybe somebody else is, I'm exhausted. I actually don't want to celebrate the holidays at all anymore. And then still others might be saying to you, I'm really scared. I'm scared. I just feel like, and it might even be somebody, believe it or not, that's not high risk at all. They might be very young, extremely healthy, but they might truly have very strong feelings of fear. And so what I want to invite everybody to do is to recognize the difficult feelings, if you have any. Most people do right now, but if you have a challenging feeling, to acknowledge it and know that it's there, but remind yourself that not everybody in your family or friend network, or the person that you're caring for, or maybe if you're being helped out by a loved one because you're an older adult that needs care, maybe the people that care for you don't have the exact same feelings that you do. And somebody wrote in confined. That's another very powerful word. So remember that everyone's experiencing this very difficult time in a different way. But when you're thinking about what your plans are, you certainly want to take into consideration, mostly everybody on this program, I'm guessing, is in DC, Maryland, Virginia, or maybe if somebody popped on from another state. But things are starting to change in our states. The governors and the powers that be are starting to put more restrictions in place. It seems like that's happening in the areas that have colder weather right now. So you definitely want to take into consideration what your local officials are recommending and asking for you to do. But I also do think it's important to consider your personal risk tolerance and those in your family and friend network that you would be celebrating with. So if you have a parent who's 90 years old and she has congestive heart failure and diabetes and Alzheimer's disease, and she has, maybe she's a cancer survivor, you've got a lot to be thinking about, because that is somebody that's probably in the very high risk category. So it might be that you want to consider what other ways can you celebrate besides having an in-person. But that said, if your loved one, it may be, even though she has all these different conditions, but she has Alzheimer's, but she has a lot of moments of clarity, and she says, you know what? I really just want to this could be my last Thanksgiving. I want to be with the family right now. I don't think you can ignore that either. I am not here to tell anybody how to navigate the COVID risk. Public health officials are there to do that. If you live in a senior living community, they're giving guidelines and recommendations. But I think it's super important for everyone to just consider their risk, their family, their situation. And certainly the idea of eating a holiday meal outside in our geographic area is probably not going to happen. If you're in Florida or maybe California or some other of the warmer weather states, that might be. But, there is a lot of data that suggests that COVID spreads less outside. And so there's a lot of data to support that would be the safest option. But, in the mid-Atlantic area where we all live, the great news is that sometimes we get a weird 70-degree day in November and December. It's already happened, actually, this month. So it might be that you consider it, maybe that's something you're going to consider. You're going to have the holiday meal on your deck or on your porch, or you're going to leave some windows open to get some ventilation in, that you're going to mitigate your risk. But I think it's important for everybody to, you want to listen to what your state guidelines are. You want to listen, if you live in a senior living community, what their guidelines are. If you live in Ingleside, for sure, you want to hear what they have to say about visits and about gatherings. But I think you also want to think about your personal situation. And if you live in a senior living community where they're saying, well, if you participate in a gathering, then you've got to quarantine for a certain period of time, you might want to just think about, is that something that you want to do? Or you might want to say, this year we're going to sit out the holidays. And maybe you're going to stay, if you live in Ingleside, you're going to stay in the community, you're going to participate in the wonderful activities that they have planned, and you're going to postpone some of the winter and fall holidays until the weather gets warmer and perhaps there's a vaccine. But I think it's important for everyone to seriously consider what makes sense for themselves, the loved ones that they're taking care of, their family unit. I don't think enough is being considered about the mental health component of, we hear constantly on the news and constantly on the media about that you could die of COVID, and that's true. Anyone theoretically could die or have very serious case of COVID. But more than 9 million people in the United States have been diagnosed with COVID, and I think we're about 250,000 people have passed away, and most have had a lot of other conditions and have been on the older side. But only you can make those decisions. Only you can make those choices. And some people, again, feel like the best, safest, most sensible approach is to wait for a vaccine. But again, I think sometimes, being around your loved ones, seeing someone's smiling face, giving them a squeeze, having a meal with someone, I think we have to forget that if a loved one in our network that we care about is feeling isolated and lonely, maybe try to have the holiday celebration as safely as possible. But only you can decide what that means. And I do encourage you to consider what your state says and what their suggestions are. But again, also, if you live in a senior living community, you have to take all of that into consideration as well. So I'm open to any comments, any questions at all. Do your own research and consider what makes sense for you, not just for your physical health, but for your mental health, for your cognitive health, for your spiritual health, and consider that for yourself. So if anybody has any comments or questions, I'm glad to revisit this. I'm glad to keep talking about it, but I'm going to now move on to step 2 because I think everyone is a little bit tired of hearing and talking about COVID, even though it's a reality right now that we all need to think about. So every single year when I give a talk about the holiday season, don't underestimate that falls so dramatically at this time of year. And it's not just snow and ice, which we certainly can get. As much as we could get a 70-degree day at Thanksgiving, we could get a 20-degree day with snow and ice. So this is our geographic areas can be really funny. So if you are, not even if you have an older loved one, if you have any loved ones over, you yourself buy the salt. Make sure that you have you got somebody to shovel, or you have a service that's taking care of that. Here's kids' toys. Kids are opening presents. Kids are excited. There's debris. There's wrapping paper. More than ever, and again, I'm going to talk about COVID again for a second because it's very relevant to falls. Now, no one ever wants to fall. No one ever wants to fall. We don't want anybody to fall, ever, under any holiday season, any year. But this year in particular, you really, really don't want to fall, and you don't want your loved ones to fall. Because even if it's your kid who falls, who's 12, do you really want to have to deal with going to the hospital and not being able to have both parents there, for example? And if you're a grown-up, if you're an adult, most of the time right now, they're still not letting you bring a family member in. So imagine if you have a loved one who's got a lot of health issues, or you yourself have a lot of health issues. You fall, you got to go to the hospital, you're in pain, and you're all by yourself at the holidays. Nobody wants that. More than ever, we want to reduce the possibility of a hospitalization this time of year. You always want to not go to the hospital. No one wants to go to the hospital. But in particular, let's say your loved one has dementia, and we're going to be talking about dementia tips shortly. But if your loved one has dementia, imagine them going and not knowing where they are, and that they can't have a loved one there. I come from this big, obnoxious Polish family from Philadelphia, and when somebody in my family is in the hospital, it's usually at least 7 to 10 people deep in the waiting room. And I'll give you an example. When either one of my grandparents were ever in the hospital, my grandfather was in the ICU. I think there were 15 of us at his bedside when he passed away. And just thinking more recently, last year, about a year ago, one of my aunts had to have a lumpectomy, and there were 7 of us, not at the hospital, but at the surgery center, 7 of us waiting in the waiting room. We couldn't do anything. She wasn't even staying overnight, but we were there just for moral support, just to see her when she came out, and she was really loopy, and she just, filled up with tears and was smiling because so many people were there. And that's a dramatic difference from what's going on right now. My uncle just had to have surgery on his shoulder, and he isn't elderly. He's in his 60s. He tripped on something in the garage and he had to have surgery. And my aunt said it was the most unnerving feeling taking him to the surgery center, not being able to go in, and not knowing, not being able to see the doctor's face and the staff and check in with them. And she said sitting in the car, she just felt so helpless. So more than ever this year, we, caregivers are not getting to play the role that they need to. We need to do everything we can to minimize fall risk. And so if you have somebody that you love, that you want to celebrate with, who has had lots of falls, you may not want them to leave where they typically are, whether they're in a senior living community, whether they're in a private home, whether they're at your home with you, and you're thinking, well, my sister's having a dinner and there's only going to be 5 people and we're going to have some windows open. It's going to be fine. Think about it hard, especially if it's raining, if it's icy, if it's snowing. Just be mindful. And with children's toys and dim lighting and anything that could impact a fall right now, we never want to fall, but this is the year we just want to prevent hospitalization. And if anybody has any comments or questions, feel free to write in. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Scam proof your holiday. So older adults are scammed at a very alarming rate, and older adults actually tend to lose more money than younger people from scams. The data is pretty clear on that. And anybody can fall victim of a scam. Somebody that's very, very educated, has 6 master's degrees and has tons of money, or highly educated, very smart. It doesn't matter. Anybody is at risk for falling for a scam. You've probably heard the scams that have been happening. One scam that is making the rounds still, I have a friend whose dad fell victim to this, was the kidnapping scam. I know I have your grandson. He says where the grandson goes to school, says to college, says a little bit of data about the grandson, and they have someone screaming in the background. And of course, it's not the grandson, but this gentleman came very close to wiring money via Western Union because he wanted to pay the ransom for his grandson. And it was very, very hard for this gentleman to be de-escalated. Now, again, I know I'm going to keep touching on COVID a little bit, but there are COVID scams. I have an early vaccine. I have the treatment in case you get it. There are so many scams that are happening. If you or your loved one are getting something in the mail that looks like an invoice from a charity, check it. It might just be a request for a donation. And you need to think about, is that legitimate? Really look at the information, because scam artists are smart. And that's the scary thing. Scam artists are smart. They know people have money to give away at the end of the year, and maybe they haven't made all their charitable contributions. They'll call on the phone. And best practice for this time of year is, if you want to make a donation, you phone them, you find their phone number, you call them, or you go on their website and you put your information in, or you mail your check directly to them, look up their address. But be on the lookout, and especially a lot of data suggests that when we are isolated and when we are lonely, we are much more vulnerable for financial exploitation. So say you and your family choose that you're not doing any celebrations this year, that everyone's going to do their own thing. Mom is going to stay home. She's 80 years old. She's going to be alone. And she's feeling very, very vulnerable and very sad and very low. And she picks up the phone and it's somebody asking for money. And they're talking to her for a while. How you doing? It's a really tough time of year. A lot of people are alone. I hate to tell you this, but a lot of scam artists are very, very savvy. They know the time of year to call. They know the time of year to send something in the mail. And especially our older adults who are not getting out as much, they are vulnerable more than ever. So keep an eye on yourself, keep an eye on your loved ones who are older. And again, young people fall for scams as well, but don't give your credit card number or your checking account number to anybody who just simply calls your house. If you think it's your bank, just pick up the phone and dial your bank. Say, did someone from the bank call me? But be mindful and know that, especially if you're making the tough decision because for your risk tolerance, your family, you decided we don't want to gather during the holidays. We're not going to do any sort of gathering. Everyone's going to be on their own. One thing, maybe send gifts to mom. Make sure you're doing Zooms or at least telephone calls. Send a card every day. Do drive-bys. Don't let your loved one feel alone, because the loneliness and isolation always has made that person more vulnerable to a scam, but especially at the holiday season. Comments and questions are welcome at any point if anyone would like to write in. So step number 4, be mindful of your loved one who has dementia. This is a big one. So if your loved one has Alzheimer's or vascular dementia, Lewy body, frontotemporal, or maybe you suspect that they have a cognitive impairment, but there hasn't actually been an official diagnosis yet, know that the holidays can present many challenges. People who have dementia tend to do really well with routine. So if you are going to gather, if you are going to engage in celebrations, make sure that meals are around the same time of day. Make sure that you are making sure that the loved one gets their medicine at the right time every day. Make sure that they're kept hydrated. Make sure that they're getting plenty of exercise, especially if that person tends to wander, because we want to tire them out during the day. We want them to get their exercise. A lot of people wander because they're just trying to get some exercise and they need to move around. But also be really careful we have many beautiful decorations and lights this time of year that we love. People with dementia maybe sometimes are confused by, and so candlelight can be confusing. It can be beautiful, but if a menorah, somebody might think it's fake and might touch it or might push it over, not realizing that they shouldn't touch it. Christmas tree lights blinking can be very agitating and nerve-wracking for someone that's already disoriented. So it's super important to just be mindful of the noises and the surroundings in addition to the visual. So if there's a lot of kids around, and the great news about kids, and again, I'm bringing up COVID again, is the data is overwhelming that kids are unlikely to spread COVID. They typically don't get bad cases of COVID. So if your loved one is enjoying time with grandkids, great-grandkids, they might be particularly rambunctious and loud. They're excited. They've got new toys. They're around a bunch of people that they don't see all the time. We want to make sure that we're really, really careful about if it's too much for our loved one with dementia. Maybe we only keep the visit short, or maybe we make sure that the kids know ahead of time that, for the hour that their great grandmother is there, that they need to play really quietly. Maybe they need to color, and that's a tall order at the holiday, but you want to be thinking, and some persons with dementia, they love it. They love the noise of kids playing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if it seems to agitate your loved one who has dementia, always be ready to course correct. And so once I actually had a conversation with a woman who told me that she was going to take her husband on a safari, and he had a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. And I said to her, I really recommend you talk to your doctor about it. I don't know if that's going to work out the way you want. It was a bucket list thing. They really wanted to do it. And I just got so worried and concerned for them, because I thought all the different visuals, all the different noises, the plane rides. And again, going to a holiday celebration isn't necessarily anywhere near as big of a deal as going to a safari. But what I always say to families is, when you've got a loved one with dementia, if you're going to take a trip, if you're going to go to a party, if you're going to get to go to a gathering, and this is of course pre-COVID, always be willing to course correct if you're going to bring that person. So if you drive 45 minutes to your sister's house for a meal, and you've done everything, you've got the ventilation going, and it's less than 10 people, and everyone's 6 feet apart, or whatever you all decided was the sensible thing for you and your family to do, and mom gets there, and mom starts banging her hands on the dining room table and yelling, and that's not a normal behavior for mom, then I would recommend that you take mom home, or that you get mom a quiet place to rest and try that. Maybe put an old movie on for her in a different room. Maybe make her a small plate and somebody sit with her, just one person. If you're going to do something new and different with your loved one who has dementia at any time, not just the holiday season, but at any time, always be willing to course correct and change direction and abandon the plan. And because and listen, if you're saying, you know what, but it's my Thanksgiving too, it's my holiday too, I get that. But if you feel that way, maybe if you're not willing to course correct, if it doesn't go well with mom, maybe leave mom behind with an aide or another loved one, or maybe have a meal with your sister's family another time. But we have to adapt to the person who has dementia. We can't expect them to adapt to what we're doing. Yeah, and Stephanie's writing in, so important to be mindful of the reason for having the person that has dementia as part of the celebration. Yeah, Stephanie brings up such a good point, and Stephanie is moderating today, but she's also one of our speakers at Generations Health, and she's excellent. And Stephanie, you make such a great point, because a lot of times families feel like, I can't not bring my mom, or I can't not bring my husband. He's got to come. If I'm going to the gathering, he's got to go too. And sometimes it's all about us feeling guilty and feeling like it wouldn't be appropriate. But truthfully, there are a lot of times when it's better for that person to just be home, or to maybe have a small celebration, or maybe remain at their senior living community. Say they're at Ingleside. Maybe them staying there makes more sense. And Razie is writing in, for her dad was happiest when he was included. For some people, yes. For some people, that's very true. But I think the key is, if dad gets there and he's happy and he's enjoying, he's smiling, he's eating, he's hugging people, he's being festive, he's laughing at the children who are playing, then great, keep it going. But my point is, if you get there and dad is frowning and he looks nervous and he looks stressed out, then I recommend course correcting. But you always want to be aware of what's your intention. What's your intention? Why are you having your loved one at the celebration? Your loved one often doesn't know, depending on what stage they're in, your loved one often doesn't know that this is the actual day of Christmas, or this is actually New Year's Eve, that you can possibly celebrate with them in a different way on the next day. So it's just be mindful, are you doing it truly for them because they're enjoying it, like Razie said, or are you doing it for you to assuage your guilt? Consider your silver linings. And I know that can be really tough right now. Now, there's a lot that I don't like about what's going on with COVID, but, and it's definitely, again, I'm bringing it up again. I got the big elephant out of the room talking about that as the first step, but there are a lot of silver linings that I see. Now, interestingly, I just keynoted for the Maryland Hospice and Palliative Care Network, and I polled their membership, and I asked their staff, so it was all the hospice organizations throughout the state of Maryland. And before I did my keynote, I polled their staff and I said, what silver lining have you found during this difficult time, if any? And I asked them, it could be either at work or personal, and a full 10% of people in Maryland who work in hospice said, none. There's been no silver lining. So some people do feel that way, and I get it, but I'm going to challenge you to think about, is there a silver lining right now? What can you be grateful for? And one that my husband and I keep joking about is when all the COVID guidelines and suggestions started to come out, I remember saying to my husband, oh my gosh, does the CDC and the state health department really need to tell people to wash their hands? And my husband says, yes, I think they do. And I said, what do you mean? And he says, well, going into men's room my whole life, he says, I would say that in my experience, only about 50% of men wash their hands. And I said, you're kidding me. And he says, and about half of them, I think, only do a courtesy rinse. And we've had the biggest laugh about this because I can't believe that would be true. And no offense to any gentlemen who are viewing or listening to this. This is just my husband's anecdote. But we've shared his story with other friends, and a lot of the guys that we know have said, yeah, no, you know, there are a lot of guys in the bathroom that don't wash their hands. So my husband and I joke that perhaps a silver lining of this time is that people are cleaning their hands more, which is not good just for COVID, but it's good for everything. The common cold, it's good for the flu, it's just good to prevent food poisoning. But also, other silver linings that I remember before COVID, I would think, wouldn't it be great if like there was a snowstorm for like 2 weeks and you kind of had to be hunkered down in your house? And well, you know, I'm never going to have that wish again, because as much as I've enjoyed spending lots and lots of time at home, I feel like that wish came true times 1,000. But the silver lining of that unlimited time at home did come true. It did come true for a lot of us, if you ever had that thought. But other silver linings, you know, a lot of us are feeling grateful that maybe people are seriously taking seriously, don't go to work or don't go to school, don't go to sporting events if you're sick. And I think for a long time, a lot of us had this idea that if you're really tough, you're still going to go to work if you're sick, or you're still going to go take care of, you know, your job responsibilities, or you're going to go plow through if you and you're contagious and you're getting other people sick. So I wonder, for me, I think that's a silver lining. I'm hopeful that will stick around. So I want to challenge everybody during this holiday season, as we go through this very bizarre holiday season, that no one really completely knows the right thing to do based on physical health and mental health and making their own decisions for themselves and their family. I want to challenge you to consider, can you think of 5 silver linings or 5 areas that you're grateful for during this holiday season? And maybe make that a practice for you and your loved ones, something that you can do on a Zoom call if you aren't gathering, or something that you can do, you can send each other emails or texts, but thinking about the ways that what is going well, what are you grateful for? Are there any silver linings? And I know that this is a big ask, and it was very hospice people, and I know Donna and Stephanie can tell you, and because they've worked in health and mental health for a really long time, hospice people are some of the most optimistic people out there. And it was just very jarring to me when I did the survey for their membership that 10% of them said that they have not seen one silver lining in this difficult situation. So I know that there may be some people that are listening to this say, what are you talking about? So, but if you can, are there a few things that you're grateful for? Can you do that once a week to try to have more joy during this holiday season? Even if you choose that you opt that your risk tolerance says don't gather, we have a lot that we can do with our loved ones. And I know everyone's Zoomed out. I know everyone is FaceTimed and Skyped out. You're tired of it. You're sick of it. I get it. But it might be that you mail presents and cards to each other and watch each other on video, or listen to each other on the phone while you share your cards or your presents. Maybe video the kids opening their presents and send it to your loved ones who won't be able to be with you. Maybe have a family gift exchange on Zoom where everybody can send their gifts and you all get on the platform of Zoom or a GoToWebinar or Skype or something like that at the same time. But there's also other areas that can't be taken away from us right now. And they're the old movies that we all love to watch. And maybe both you and other loved ones that you care about, maybe that you weren't be gathering with, can watch them and talk about them. Listening to great holiday music is something that can't be taken away from you this holiday season. And again, I know that this is a challenging time. It's something to be really looking at what makes sense for you based again on what your state is guidelines are, and what, if you live at an Ingleside, what their recommendations and requirements are. But there are ways to enjoy this holiday season that you can do. And again, you got to consider your own risk tolerance during this time. So I want to challenge everybody again to think about that word that we talked about. And some people I think someone put in grateful. How do you want to feel and my words for me that I want to feel beginning the new 2021. I know so many of us are just so excited to get out of 2020, hoping and optimistic that 2021 will be much, much better. My words are peaceful and optimistic, that I want to feel peaceful and optimistic as I enter 2021. Mary is saying she wants to feel her word to be healthy. So if you can come up with the word and try to hang on to that during this holiday season. We all are in this together. You might have different feelings and different opinions from other people that you care about, other people that you love. It's important to acknowledge your feelings, but know that not everybody feels the way that you feel right now. And we want to respect other people's opinions. So I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to now turn it over to Donna Fuller from Ingleside to say a few words, and we're going to keep the chat box open if you'd like to ask myself, Stephanie Goldstein from Generations, or Donna, if you have any comments or questions for any of us, we'd love to hear them. Thanks for spending some time with us, and I'm going to turn it over to Donna once I pull up her screen.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Just wanted to leave you with a couple of thoughts about Ingleside, if any of you would like additional information about our community. Wanted to let you know that one of the things that we really wanted to do to support families, especially family caregivers right now, is to offer a 30-day respite program at any point in time if you or your loved one needs some additional support or want to experience what life might be like in a community without a commitment. So just a little bit of information to share with you about that. Again, my name is Donna Fuller. I am the Director of Outreach, and I do work with many, many families at both Rock Creek and King Farm to help them navigate these difficult times and educate you on the programs that we have. So if you have any questions at all about Ingleside, please always feel free to reach out to me. And I guess my final wish for all of you is that you have a peace-filled holiday season, and that I know it might not be perfect, but as Jennifer was saying, I'm seeing the silver linings in it for my own family as I realize that this is going to be the first Thanksgiving where I've just celebrated it with my own family unit. And while I'm going to miss my parents and my extended family, I'm excited about sort of having a quieter, more peaceful holiday. So I wish that for you too. And we're going to be having many more programs like this. We have our next program coming up is on December 8th at noon. And we are doing a program on the journey to memory care featuring an aging life care manager by the name of Marianne Buckley. It's going to be a wonderful program to talk about your experiences with that journey. And I will be talking a little bit more about Ingleside's memory support program. So more information will be coming out about that. And last but not least, one of the things that we wanted to offer just to make these programs a little more fun is a holiday basket raffle. So I picked a name out of a hat, and I wanted to let Mr. Peter Kofsky know that he won the raffle. So I'm going to be sending you a holiday basket in the mail. I hope that you and your wife enjoy it. And again, I hope you'll join us in the new year when we really start up many more caregiver programs as well. So have a wonderful holiday, and I hope to see all of you virtually again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna. I appreciate, we appreciate your sponsoring the program today. Thanks to Jennifer for all these great tips. It was really helpful. And again, thanks to you in the audience for joining us today and learning more about how you can have a safe and successful holiday season with you and your loved one. And again, many, many thanks to Donna Fuller and Ingleside at Rock Creek and King Farm for sponsoring today's program. Wishing you all a very healthy and safe holiday season.